Okay, so what did we talk about last time we were in class? Yeah, you weren't here. You have an assignment to make up too. Yep. We talked about logbooks. Okay, what did we learn about logbooks?
They're not required, but probably good to have one.
Okay, so logbooks for UAS are not required like they are for manned aviation, but it's probably good to have one. Why would it be good to have one? To know the dates, so to have a historical record of where you've been and what you did. It's reliable. So why would it be important to know where you've been, what you've done? To prove it? Where would you need to prove it?
If like an FFA or the FAA asks you.
Yes, if the Federal Aviation Administration asks you, not the Future Farmers of America. Yeah. If they were to come ask you, you've got a reference point. But since we're talking about industry stuff, workforce type stuff, why would a logbook be beneficial to us, even though it's not required? Keep up to date. So we can show experience, prove experience. So it can be an additional item that we use in our resume if we're trying to get a job somewhere. Because if we're going to get hired to fly drones for somebody, we're going to have to be able to prove our experience with flying drones, prove that we didn't just buy a cheap drone at Walmart and fly it around a little bit and think we're good to go. Okay. All right. So for the next little bit, think back on what we talked about in the last class and do a little bit more research and study back to where we're gonna to figure out what we're gonna have in our logbook, what sections we need in our logbook, what titles those sections need to have for our logbook. Because here in a little bit we're going to discuss and we're going to create logbooks so that you can keep up with the time that you fly in class, and if you get your own drone or have your own drone already, you can keep up with additional time outside of class. So we can start building those resumes and getting ready for industry. Alrighty. So take about 20 minutes or so to work on that, and then we'll get geared up again. Okay, so have y'all found pretty much what we're going to want to put in our logbooks so we can keep accurate records of what we've done, where we've done it, and how we've done it? I'm guessing the silence is a yes. Yeah. Okay, so all right. So what are some categories we're going to want in our logbook? What? Battery. So what do we need to know about the battery? Not so much all that. We need to know which battery we're using, so like a battery ID maybe. If we've got more than one battery for a drone, that's when that's going to become important. We want to know how long we've used the battery, so I'm going to go with percentage up, so percentage when you take off, and the battery percentage when you land, so percent down. What else do we need to have in our logbooks? The what? How long you flew, so flight time or flight duration. Okay. What else? We're creating a historical document so we can prove our experience. I can't hear you. You have to speak up. To and from. With unmanned, we're not really gonna have the to and from, but just a general location will be good. What else? We talked about this pretty extensively Tuesday.
Would you really say flight time?
Yeah, flight time or duration.
How long is that?
That's how long it flew, flight time or duration. So if we're making a historical document, we're looking at history, what are we going to have to look for? What does history have tied with it?
Date.
A date. Oh, okay. So we've got a date. What else might we want?
Your signature.
Yeah, potentially in a paper logbook, you'd want the signature. What tends to go along with a date? Time. So the time of day. All right. So got date, time, location, duration, battery. What else do we need to log? Do we need to keep record of? Which drone? So the aircraft. Commonly called AC, A/C. Okay. All right. What's some other things? There's a few more things that we might want to put in here. I can't hear. Reason you flew. So your mission. Okay. What's something that could go with location that would be important for us to note that we've experienced? Yeah, we could do weather. We would add that in the notes or details section. We could throw weather in there, which is abbreviated WX. But what's something that's different from the location we're at now versus my location at Southside versus the location at my house when it comes to flying? Type of airspace. So we might want to put that down so we can show we've got experience with different airspaces, experience operating in controlled airspace as well as uncontrolled airspace. All right, something else. There's really one other area I'm looking for at this point. And we have to do both of these in order to actually fly the drone or to stop flying the drone. So where do our missions take place? Where does drone operation take place? In the air. So how do we get the drone in the air? You have to take off and then you have to land. So takeoffs and landings. Okay, did anybody have anything else that they wanted to add in on the checklist? Or is that pretty good? Y'all are pretty good with that? Okay, so everyone needs to, if you're not already in your Chromebook, open up your Chromebook, go to Google. So what are ways that we can make our own logbook? Joshua, if you were going to sit down and make your own logbook right now, how are you going to do it?
Gather the information, what is it?
So if you're going to make your own logbook right now while we're sitting here in class so that you can keep track of these records, how are you going to do it? Like, what are you going to do? Are, yeah, are you just going to like make a Google Doc like we have here on the left side of the screen?
No, I do Google Sheets and make a spreadsheet.
You do a Google Sheets and make a spreadsheet?
Yeah.
Anybody do anything different? You're using Google Slides so you're basically just making that, duplicating it for every slide and then filling in the blanks. Okay. Any other thoughts?
You can do a doc and insert a table.
You can do a doc and insert a table.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else? Anything that might take a little bit of setting up on the front end, but might make it a little simpler on the back end. When you're out there doing the missions, might make it a little quicker. You've probably done a few of these throughout the school year in response to administration, maybe teachers. A Google form, you do one of those every morning or every day when you get to class, don't you? So let's look at making a Google form and see if we can make that work for us. Okay, so we're on our Chromebooks. We've got the web browser open. We are at google.com. And this is what we see. We're going to go over here to the little grid of dots. That's our Google apps. Click on that and it'll pull up all sorts of options for us. What we're looking for is a little purple icon that looks like a page. It says forms underneath it, like this right here. So we're going to click on that. And everyone needs to be doing this along with me because you're going to have to keep up with this. This is going to be your logbook so you can keep track of your flights that we make in this class and you can start building your resume. So we're going to create a blank new form. At the top it says untitled form. This is going to be your logbook. So we're going to name it. I'm going to name mine Teachers Logbook. Joshua's will be Joshua. Nathan's will be Nathan's. So on and so forth. If you want to put a description in there, you can. You don't have to. I'm going to put starting on January 14th, 2021 for mine, just so I know. And actually, I'm also going to put in there this third period. Third P, Northside High School. And that's all I'm going to put on there. I'm going to go down to that first question. So looking at our deal here, we've got a question box right here. Down here at the bottom, there's the plus that says add question, import questions. You can add title and description, add an image, add a video, or add a section. So basically when we add a section, that's making a new page. So whenever it goes into the form view, like when y'all fill out the form for class in the mornings, each different section would show up as a new page. So we might want to keep stuff sectioned off. So let's see. Out of our options over here, what do y'all think might be best to go first? The date is a good call. So we're gonna, whoops. There we go. All right, so I'll jump back over here. I'm going to type in date at create question, and it's recognized that I'm wanting to pick a date, so it went to the date format for the question. Over here in this drop-down box, it gives us other formats we can use, like short answer, paragraph, multiple choice, checkboxes, drop-downs, uploads, date, and time. Since I typed date, it recognized I wanted date. Now, I'm going to want that to come up every time I do that. I'm going to want that to be kept in my records. So on required, I'm going to click that over to where it turns purple because I want this to, I'm going to have to answer that every time I go into this form before it let me proceed. All right, so we've got the date. Now it's time to add another question. Click on the plus, and there comes my question. So what would I want to put after the date? Duration. Okay, I'm probably going to put that a little further down on the list. What commonly goes with date? Time. Time, and it recognized I wanted that, so it switched it over for me. I'm going to make that required also. Come over here and make this. So I've done hit those. All right, so right now we're doing some pretty general stuff, date, time. What else is pretty general in our list over here that we could throw in with date and time? Location. So you notice with time, it's got the options. And it has this blue thing right here on the side, the blue line. That's telling me I've got that selected. If I have date selected and I hit add new question, it's going to put the question underneath date. But I want that to be after time. So since I messed that up, I can click on this little area up here, click and drag, and then I can drag that down to relocate it. So now, since I fixed that, I'm going to type in location. And it's going to ask how I want the deal. It's going to assume that since I'm asking for location, I want short answer. That's probably how I'm going to leave it. If we were going to be just flying the same places over and over again, we could do a multiple choice or a checkbox or a drop down. If we wanted to, but short answer is sufficient, especially if we're going to be doing like GPS coordinates. Once you get outside of our little high school environment here, you'll probably want to start using GPS coordinates. While we're here at high school, though, you can just put like NHS football field if you're going to go fly at the football field. Or if you're just flying all over campus, just NHS would work. So we'll leave that with short answer. Does anybody know what the drop-down box is? Okay, so a drop-down box. You notice how this box has something in it, but it has this arrow right here. This in itself is a drop-down box. It gives you the box drops down, gives you choices to choose from. So instead of all the choices being out here underneath it, like it would be with check boxes, you'd have options and that you can check them off. Drop-down boxes drops down. But we're going to switch this back to short answer, and we're going to require that too. Okay, do we have anything else that's just pretty general, or does everything else start to get kind of specific? starts to get kind of specific, doesn't it? So instead of adding a new question, let's go over here and add a section. Let's see, what do we have left? We've got battery, flight time, aircraft, mission, notes, details, airspace, takeoffs, and landings. So since all that other stuff was just some general stuff, let's name this section flight. And we can add a question. So what question might we want to add at this point? Flight time or duration? Yeah. This could be a good spot for it. Okay, how do we want the answer to be for that? We don't want it to necessarily be a time, but this is going to be more like a minute, hours, minutes, seconds type thing. Really, it'll be hours or minutes rounded up. So what do you think? Yeah, we'll go with short answer for now. Just because I might put you on some projects later, or if you get a drone of your own or have a drone of your own, you've got a wider range of times. Flight time is recorded in hours. But most of what we do is going to end up being in minutes. So you'll have to convert that to like a decimal. So if you fly for 30 minutes, that's 0.5 hours. If you fly for 15 minutes, that's 0.25 hours. 45 minutes, 0.75 hours. We'll just round it up to the nearest quarter, I guess. So with that being said, if we wanted to, if we knew, well, since there's in the real world, there's potential to fly for more than an hour, just swapping out batteries. But with us being restricted to a class period, we probably won't fly more than an hour. No one will fly more than an hour at a time. So if you wanted to, you could do a multiple choice or a checkbox or a drop down for 0.25 hours, 0.5 hours, 0.75, 1 hour. But we're just going to leave it short answer for now. We'll require that. And we'll mark that off our list. Okay, then what next? Anything else that seems kind of flight specific that we might want to list in the flight section? Mission? Okay, do you think we should have the mission before or after the flight time? I agree. I think before. So I'm going to click on flight on that section header and then hit add question. And that'll put that down there. So then we'll do mission. And I'm going to change that to short answer. If because our missions here could change. I'm going to go ahead and require that too. I did not require the flight time, so I'm going to go back, click on that, require it. So now it should have that red star beside it that says it's required. There we go. I changed mission to short answer. If we were just going to be doing the same thing over and over again, like mapping is all you're going to do, then you could just create a drop down for mapping. but we're going to do more than that. Now what? I'll tell you, we'll put battery as its own section. We've got aircraft, notes, airspace, takeoffs, landings. So do we want to add something else in flights, or do we need to make a new section? I'm sorry, type of aircraft? Are we going to put that in flight, or? It is the aircraft. It is flying. I'm okay with throwing that into this. Where should it be? Should it be before mission, or after flight time? In between them? I'll agree. I think it fits better there. Okay, so aircraft. I guess I spelled it Hollercraft. All right, so how are we gonna do this one? Just it's which aircraft. So like we've got a whole bunch of drones here we can fly. So the aircraft is the drone itself. Typically make a model. Short answers or check boxes. There are many options. How about we try the drop down box? And then it gives us option 1. So we've got a DJI Phantom 4 Pro. I hit enter. It goes down to option 2. We have a DJI Mavic Mini. We have a DJI Mavic 2 Enterprise Dual. So 2ED. What else do we have? No, we don't have the Military Strike DJI 2.0. But on a side note, Sony just released a drone, or they unveiled it at the Consumer Electronics Show. It looks pretty cool. It's like I guess they're going to call it like the PlayStation Fly or something. No, they're not calling it the PlayStation Fly. It's like Free Fly Alpha or something like that. So what are those on the back wall over there? So we've got Flame Wheel 450. What'd y'all fly a lot of last year? Those little guys, the Tello. And we'll throw in a spot down here for other, just in case we've got something. We can always come back and edit this, add to it later if we need to. If we start getting rid of drones, you probably won't take away from it. But within this is the order that's going to show up in the drop down. The Phantom 4 is going to be at the top, others are going to be at the bottom. If we wanted to change it around so the drone that we think we're going to use the most is closest to the top, we can do that. So let's say we're going to fly the DJI Mavic Mini all the time. We just click over there to the side and slide it up, and it becomes option 1. And then we're going to probably fly the Flame Wheels after that. And I think I like that. So that's my options for the drop box. Make sure I require it by clicking. And now that's a required question. Now I can take aircraft off of my list. Okay. So now what? I've got notes, airspace, takeoff, and landing. Takeoff? Where do we want to put takeoff? Before flight time. I will agree. So to put it before flight time, I'm going to make sure I've selected aircraft, and then I'm going to hit add question. Okay, so takeoffs. And how can we do that?
Does that mean like yes or no, or that like the timer takes off?
So that would be, it's basically a number of takeoffs is what you would record in that section. How many times you took off. Because you could have a flight that goes for 4 hours, but if your battery only lasts 30 minutes, then you're going to need like what, eight batteries. So there'll probably be 8 takeoffs and landings for that, or 7 takeoffs and landings for that. 8. So how do we want to do that? We won't be flying that long, so there shouldn't be that many. There shouldn't be an instance where we take off more than 5 times. But let's see, how about a linear scale? Do y'all know what a linear scale does? So let's click on linear scale. That gives me an option over here, 1 to 5. I can change the low number to 0. But we won't have an there will never be a time where you have 0 takeoffs. Then on my 2 side, I can go up to 10, it looks like. So let's just leave it at 5 because we probably won't ever have more than 5 takeoffs. You could label the options if you wanted to. You could put, well, if we were doing something other than takeoffs, we were doing like quality of flight, you could do 1, and for the 1 label, you could put bad, and for the 5 label, or you could put worst. At the 5, you could put best. If you wanted to, we're going to require that. So if I click over here, it gives you a preview. That's what that does. So now you can click 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 for your number of takeoffs. So I'm going to click back up here on takeoffs. What comes after a takeoff? A landing. I'm going to do it in the same format. Landing. I'm going to do a linear scale. But I'm going to change it to 0 for my smallest number, and then 5 for my biggest number. And then I'm going to require that. How can you have more takeoffs than landings? If you crash, you didn't really land. No, it's arriving. Okay, so now I've got airspace, notes, battery. I already told you battery is going to be its own section. Now we've got airspace and notes. Where do you think airspace would be in this grand scheme of things? Yeah, I would probably put that. Oh, are you saying up here?
Yeah.
You could. I think I would put it right after mission. So I'm going to click on mission, then click add question. And now I can type in airspace. Now I've got a few options on how I'm going to do that. Let's do check boxes for this one, just to be different. All right, so I have option 1. What are my airspaces? There are 2 categories of airspace, controlled airspace and uncontrolled airspace. what are my categories of controlled airspace? Okay, so I heard B, C, D. Is there anything else? I've heard G. I've heard E, G. Okay, so I'm not seeing an alpha. I'm not seeing a foxtrot, an A or an F. Why is there not an A? A does exist. Do we remember where A airspace exists? Class A airspace exists at 18,000 feet mean sea level and above. So could we fly in Class A airspace? Why not? Too high? How high are we allowed to fly? 400 feet above the ground level. I guess in theory, there could be somewhere where the altitude, well, there is somewhere where the altitude is 17,800 feet. So 400 feet above ground level will be there, but there's going to be additional airspace there to help with that. But also Class A airspace is instrument flight rule only airspace. So unless you have an instrument pilot's license, you can't fly there. Why is there not an F? Because that airspace doesn't exist. So we've got our controlled airspaces of Bravo, Charlie, Delta, and Echo. There is not a Foxtrot, and then Class G is uncontrolled. So I'm going to leave it like that. Going to require that. And mark airspace off my list. Which leaves me with notes, details, and weather. Am I going to add that here? Or am I going to put it in its own spot? Do what? Okay. So weather would be a component of the notes or details. So you're saying notes and details could go in the flight section? Where at in the flight section do you think it'd go? I'll agree with the very bottom. All right, so we'll do notes / details. And it has already selected paragraph option. I'll agree that paragraph is probably the best option for that section. Okay, so that's done. All right, so now we're going to go to the battery. I'm going to create a new section. And I'm going to title that battery. Then add question. Okay, so for the first question, I'm going to do battery ID. It's going to ask for short answer. I'm going to change it to multiple choice. My option, I don't think I've got more than one battery for any drone, or more than 3 batteries for any drone, so I'm going to do battery 1, battery 2, or battery 3. Okay, then I will require that. Then add question. Since this is titled battery section, I'm going to do % up So percent at takeoff. And I'm going to leave that as a short answer. Require it, add question. And I'm going to do percent down. And that's going to be it after landing. I'm going to change that to short answer. And I'm going to require that. So now I'm pretty well done. I'm going to scroll back up, make sure there's red stars by everything that needs to be required, which we required everything be answered. So that's good. Now I'm back up here at the top. It says all changes saved in Drive, but it still says untitled form beside it. So I'm going to click beside that, and it changes it to teacher's logbook. So now I've got all changes saved in Drive. So up here by my little red icon, I'm going to click these 3 dots. I'm going to hit preview. You don't have to do this with me. You can just watch me do this part, and I'll go through here pretty quick. So we're going to say today I'm flying, and it is, what time is it? 10:52 a.m. So I'm flying at 10:52 a.m. I'm going to fly over the football field. So this would be completed after you flew, but my mission is just to do pictures. What airspace am I in here? You said B? Okay, what is Class B airspace? Class B is the busiest airspace. Class Bravo, it's going to be around our biggest cities like Dallas. We are Class E airspace. Okay, which aircraft am I going to fly today? I'm going to fly the Mavic 2 ED. I'm going to take off twice. I'm a fairly decent pilot, so I'm not going to crash. I'm going to land twice. Hopefully, knock on wood. My flight duration, since I flew twice, I'm going to say I flew for 45 minutes, which is 0.75 hours. In my notes and details, I'm just going to put pics, no issues. Next, now it takes me to the battery page. Which battery did I use? I used battery 2 and 3. Oh, I used battery. It's not letting me do more than one. Oh, yeah, I'd have to do the check boxes. All right, well, good to make note of that. Percent up for takeoff, 90. And for my other battery, it was 75%. My percent down for landing was 40%, and my second battery was 20%. So I can submit that. Now I can go back to, well, if my mouse will work. Oh, that's going to be blocked. So I can go back to over here. And then you notice up at the top, it says responses now. There's a response. I can click on that. It's going to show me the total of the responses. So it's showing me a line of the airspace I've flown in, a pie chart of which aircraft I've flown. The next time I go out and I fly a Mavic Mini and put this in here, then 50% will be green, 50% will be blue. It's always changing based off of the form submissions. So I can look at it that way. I can click here, create a spreadsheet, create a new spreadsheet. And it's going to put up a spreadsheet for when I submitted this information. And then it's going to show on there the date, time, everything that we filled out in a graph form. And then later, if I want to come back and total up all my flight time that's in this, I can like click here, do a insert, function, sum. Then I can just select all the cells that are filled out, enter, and that's the total flight time I've got so far. So that's one way that you can do it. I'm going to go back in and change that, the check boxes though.
Do you have more than one airspace flying at the same time?
You technically you could, but likely you won't with what we're doing. But there is the opportunity, there is the possibility you could be on the border of some airspace. Or if you're flying underneath Class B airspace, you'd be in Class C airspace, and then so there's that possibility. So I need to go back and change that to, what was it, checkboxes? Oh, what's going on here? So what was that? That was in the battery section. Click on that to edit, take it from multiple choice to checkboxes. There we go. And then that should have saved automatically. All changes saved. So we're good to go there. So that's one way that you could do it. It's a little bit of setting up on the front end, but now you can just go through and click that survey through real quick, and then it stores everything in one place so you can go back later, pull it all up, total it up how you need to or how you want to. Does that make sense? Now, y'all were talking earlier about spreadsheets. And spreadsheets are a very good way to go about this, especially if you're trying to have a more professional appearance for a logbook. So this is one from a website called the Drone Trainer, which I am going to appear on their podcast this month. So right here on our first page of the spreadsheet, it's got a flight stats sheet. So if I go in here to flight log, when I filled it out this morning that I was flying on January 14th, 2020, at 8 o'clock, I put all my info in here, put my mission, my flight time, the takeoffs, landings, the software version, battery, which battery, the first battery I used was battery 2. Those were the percentages. The second battery I used was battery 3. So it totaled all that up over here on the flight stats. So aircraft 1, aircraft 2, those are the missions I've flown. And down here at the bottom is a running total of everything. So it breaks it down for all time, breaks it down via years. So I had some flights in 2018, had some flights in 2020. When I click over here on battery stats, battery 1 has been used for 1 mission, battery 2 has been used on 2 missions, battery 3 has been used on 1 mission. Gives me the time the batteries have been used and the average percentage that they had up and down. So I can track trends that way. And the fourth and final page is its maintenance log, where you just have the date that you did the maintenance, the aircraft you did the maintenance to, and what maintenance you put in there. So that is something that'd be beneficial if you're wanting to have a more professional looking deal. It's a little more in depth. You've got to be a little more proactive with this one than just completing a survey. But if industry is something you're interested in, that's something I'd recommend to you. Okay, any thoughts, questions, comments, concerns? Nothing? All right then. Well, that pretty much sums up what I have for you today. So if there's not anything else, I'll leave you with that.